Love was on the freeway, love was in the air, but I still can't get back to you, back to you, back to you. Say back to you. Can't get back to you. I still can't get. Blood if on my tongue could lay a drop. We was sunken in the spot, fingers twisted just to listen to the chirping on the block. Singing through a haze, lips of that mist, kissing candy-coated rain. It was fire flames on my cheek. We would burn for the heartbeat, turn to the pain. Learn to recall through the breeze in the bay. Took a walk in your waters, you returned day to day. Kept the terms on the tongues, earned where we lay. Yearn for the slumber and burns in the way. Words undercovered and verbs on display. Shit, I'm blurred in the blink of the eye of the prey. Do you wink through a lie? Do you think when you pray? Shit, I've been losing ink every day. I've been losing ink every day. Let it sink in the ties to survive in that wake. Like love was in the air, love was on the freeway. Love was in the air, love was on the freeway. Love was in the air, but I still can't get back to you. Back to you. Back to you. Can't get back, I can't get back, I can't get back to you. Back to you, can't get back to you, can't get back, I can't get back, I can't get back to you, 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 yeah. It's like could beg forgiveness when the sun go down, spinning in a day and on a mission, get above the clouds. I'm living in this pain, it's hard to picture what was coming. Felt the blisters every way, twisting in my arms, waiting what to say. Like when the words can't seem to speak to you, forget the ones you hate. Always thought I'd see the day, the mysteries erased. A lot of mysteries to chase, I'm breaking bread to break the pace. Is you eating with your niggas or you hogging up the plate? Pitch a strike, give a hand or the mobbing at the base. Game 7, hard to fathom that the shot would ever shake. Ray Allen with the faith, 30 to the face. Curry when you hear applause and harder when it break. Start to open eyes, start to listen for the breaks. Start to give a thought to what the histories replace. Lot of histories to make, lot of histories to make. I say love was in the air, love was on the freeway. Love was in the air, love was on the freeway. Love was in the air, but I still can't get back to you. Back to you, back to you, back to you. I can't get back, I can't get back, I can't get back to you. Thank you, I appreciate y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Much love, much love.
Let's keep it going. Come on, one more time. All right. That was Gustav from Front Yard FM. And also thank you to Front Yard FM for joining us. They'll be also here with us at the end of the night because we'll have a little mingler situation. So with that, I want to welcome everybody to our closing session of the Artist Must Take Sides. Very exciting. All right. I'm going to talk a lot, so I'm going to try and keep my opening remarks brief because we do have a really special night tonight. We have our second Artist Salon. But before we get in there, I want to actually take some time to talk a little bit about what we've done over the past 6 weeks because this has been kind of different from any of our usual courses that we've done here at TPF. It's been our first Artist Salon in maybe about, or first artist course in about 4 or 5 years. And in this course, we took up the question of what does it mean for an artist to take sides? What's not only the duty and responsibility of artists historically and today, but also how do we do that in practice? It's one thing to know our history, but to take up the question, take up the mantle now is a different question that we each have to grapple with. And that's been the purpose of these artist salons in which we can use history as a vehicle to understand our responsibility today. And like I said, this course has been such a great experience and an experiment in many ways because one, we brought together hundreds of artists from various backgrounds across New York City and across the world into this very space on Tuesday evenings. And we've also included live culture and art. In the beginning of this course, we talked about how we understand the role of art and culture in this particular space and in classes. But I think each of us can feel that when there's someone on the stage performing, you feel the emotion, you feel the power, and that really sets the stage for what we're about to do and how we spend our next 2 hours together. And this was the first time in which every single class there was a live cultural aspect, which was really awesome. We had the sounds of Nina Simone and Paul Robeson and John Coltrane that Desiree and Garrett and Seth brought us. We had Melissa, who brought Almaguer, who brought to life the history of black tap artists. We had Brooklyn Nomads bringing in the Palestinian radical tradition. So each class had that special aspect, which was an experiment and really unique for this course. And we've also been experimenting with this Artist Salon that we'll have our second one today. And we'll talk a little bit about these Artist Salons because we're actually gonna be continuing them in the future based off the experience of this course. So stay tuned for that. So like I said, tonight is our second Artist Salon and it's our closing session. So we're gonna have some time at the end for more mingling. But I also wanna run through the logistics because tonight's Artist Salon is gonna look a little different from what we did about 2 weeks ago. So first we'll have a panel discussion with 4 wonderful artists. I'll introduce them in a second. And then we'll have a little bit of that discussion between all of us here as participants about what we're taking away from this course, how our practice has been influenced, or what we want the lessons from this course to influence our practice. As you can see, there's some of the tables and papers around, so lean into that. And then we'll come back for a large group discussion with everyone here and our panelists. And then we'll close out and have a little end of course function that will be beautifully DJ'd by Front Yard FM. So does that sound good? I'll be here and reminding us at each point, so stay tuned. All right, so now I'm gonna introduce our panelists tonight. I'm gonna read out everyone's description, give them a round of applause, and then they'll join us on stage at the end. So first, we have Cleo Reed, who is a student of Black Underground Sound and Intention. They are a multidisciplinary artist whose practice uses participatory art, music composition, instrument making, band leading, installation, and fabric arts. Their sophomore album, Country, is a sprawling folk electronic offering exploring the rage that comes with grappling with the grips of labor, both on the body and in the American workplace, and was named the top album of 2025 by Pitchfork, Stereo Gum, and NPR Music. So give it up for Cleo. You can see everyone's picture. All right, next we have Chris Myers, who's an actor and cultural worker born and raised in New York City. His work across mediums and sectors is motivated by the belief that artistic production and cultural engagement can fortify the best parts of our humanity and enable us to build the people-centered communities we so desperately need. So give it up for Chris. Next, we have Carsie Blanton, who is a songwriter with hooks, chutzpah, and a revolutionary optimism. A radical folk artist in the tradition of Woody Guthrie, her infectious melodies and lyrical wit keeps listeners rapt, while she conjures spirits of vaudeville, campfire sing-alongs, and punk rock. In addition to writing and performing music, Carsie works as a political organizer and activist, and in the fall of 2025, she participated in the Global Samud Flotilla, a direct action to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza by sailboat. And our conversation tonight will be moderated by none other than Rachel Domond, who is a self-taught Haitian visual artist and organizer living in Houston, Texas. Her art explores the themes of solidarity, sovereignty, and pride, and draws on both her Caribbean heritage and the rich histories of cultural significance of people's movements in the US and abroad. Rachel is a painter, printmaker, muralist, and digital artist that seeks to make art that speaks to working people's realities under the structures that attempt to keep us disenfranchised and disempowered, while highlighting the beauty, resilience, and ever-growing power of the roots of which we've grown. Give it up for Rachel. Awesome. So I've yapped enough, so let's give a round of applause for our panelists and our moderator tonight. Keep it going.
Keep it going, keep it going. How are y'all feeling? This is loud, no?
Good.
Y'all hear us all right? Okay. Well, hey, everybody. You good? Hey, everybody. My name is Rachel Domond. Very excited to be here with these 3 lovely, esteemed artists and cultural workers on this panel. And with all of y'all in the audience, how many of y'all here are artists or cultural workers? Okay, a lot. How many of y'all are artists who are nervous about calling themselves an artist, but are making, okay, shout out to y'all as well. We know, I think as artists, that so often our art is made in isolation, right? There's very rarely are we actually able to make our art in conversation with other artists. And so I think a conversation like this tonight is so important, especially in this increasingly urgent moment that we're living in. We know the people in leadership in this country are doing everything in their power to erase the gains of our people's movements throughout history. They're trying to have us point the finger at our neighbor and say that they're to blame for the reason your life is the way it is. You know, they're trying to have us disconnected from our own history, from our reality. And that's why, as artists and cultural workers, it's so important for us to be able to speak up, not necessarily to respond to every single news item that comes out, but to be able to participate in building this new culture that we know that we desperately need, fights back against these attacks on our people everywhere. And so I'm very excited to be in conversation with y'all to talk about taking aside how our art is in action, building a new movement, a new reality for our people, the new world that we need to see, that instead of being rooted in hatred and division, it's actually rooted in solidarity, in political commitment, in collective struggle, above all. And so today our conversation is going to reflect on the role of art and movement building, the connection between cultural work and political education, and how, as artists, we all can help imagine and create this future that we know we so desperately need. And so with that, I'd really love to start. Saidi so beautifully gave our little bios, but I think we all want to hear from the artists themselves, right? I'd love to hear every one of y'all, each one of y'all, give a little introduction to your work, your practice, and I'm especially interested in hearing about your journey. You're coming to be an artist and a political artist, I guess, if that's how you so choose to define yourself and your work. So maybe, Carsie, we could start with you and just go down the line that way.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Carsie, and I'm a singer-songwriter and a performing musician. And I've been doing that for about 20 years. I think I quit my last job at a coffee shop like 18 years ago, so going on 20 years. And I did the first 8 or 10 kind of regular style as just a musician writing love songs and like trying to get a record deal. And then I got radicalized over the last 10 years or so, and my work kind of tailed my own radicalization. So I think like my brother sent me the shock doctrine, and that was what started it for me. And then I read a bunch of other books and got interested in theory and eventually became an organizer. But for me, I found my songs were like a year behind me in my political journey. So it took a while for like all the songs to become protest songs, but now that's basically the situation I'm in now. So now all of my work is political, my shows are very political, and there's often like an organizing or an activism element to my shows. And when I do actions, I try to bring music to them. So I'm just trying to integrate the two things more and more all the time.
Did you have a video you wanted to share as well?
Glad you asked. So I have a video. So I went on the flotilla last fall, and I bought like an $80 guitar so that I would have a guitar on the boat. And this happened. It's crazy to watch. We throw our weight against the door. And even if we don't survive, we keep that little flame alive. Ford the river, cross the sea, a slave, a rat, a refugee. Strap the child to your side. Keep the
hid down in the scullery, a secret whispered by the wires to keep the little flame alive. 100 years, 100 more, we throw our weight against the door, and even if we don't survive, we keep that little flame alive, keep that little flame alive. Fade Dolores, Bernadine, table grapes and gasoline, homemade rifles, kitchen knives kept the little flame alive. Warsaw, Tulsa, wounded knee, they buried us. We were seeds, and singing from the grave, we rise to keep the little flame alive. 100 years, 100 more, we throw our weight against the door, and even if we don't survive, we keep that little flame alive. Remember when we shot Joe Hill? He spoke his last and final will. Good luck to all of you. Don't cry, but keep the little flame alive.
A beautiful and very catchy song as well. I'm sure that's very emotional to rewatch as well. I definitely want to talk about that more throughout the discussion tonight as well. Chris Myers, would love to hear more about your practice, your journey.
Yeah, hi everybody. It's good to see you all. My name is Chris Myers. I'm an actor and a cultural worker. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what I'll talk about is that very distinction right there. I define cultural work as working on, through, and with a people's culture to create and sustain the conditions they need for freedom. My work as an actor is in what I would call the culture industry, which is that one's easy. It's just about profit. And so cultural work for me and my work in the culture industry actually have what are almost always cross purposes. However, there is interplay between the two, like love it or hate it. Like you can't put a firm boundary between the culture that's in the industry and the culture that we do amongst ourselves. And actually, what I've come to learn is there's actually a lot of opportunity there, which maybe we'll talk about later. A great example of this is I come out of what we call the conservatory system, so I went to Juilliard. Now, a school like Juilliard is associated with creativity, talent, exceptionalism. But what I've come to realize in more recent years is actually really just vocational training, right? It's not about boundless creativity. It's about preparing me for a job in the culture industry to like work on Broadway, which I do, or work for Paramount, which I do. And like, these are not actually the same things, but we collapse them into themselves. However, again, no firm distinctions. A lot of the skills that I picked up in the conservatory, I can repurpose in my cultural work. And even more so, I think, for me, and we'll talk about cultural organizing, like the people that I get to meet in the cultural industry are all people that I can organize with if I play my cards right? So, yeah, like in terms of how this all started, I have a kind of prehistory of cultural organizing, which was, I'm not going to talk about that too much, but the short version is like I didn't have political consciousness. That's why I call it my prehistory. So a lot of like doing art for free to like raise money for like, causes. Nothing bad, but like not directed. And there's a kind of, the shift happened with this organization that I created in the beginning of the pandemic called Anti-Capitalism for Artists. And it grew out of an offer to facilitate a study group for artists to learn about class, because my provocation was, then and now, a lot of people are talking about intersectionality, but of that great group of people, I feel like the intersection of class is very often left out of the conversation. And so my premise was like, what if we lay into class for 8 weeks together. And I did that, and I thought, like, my good deed for the pandemic is done. But everyone went to tell their friends, and long story short, it became an organization that we ran for 4 years. We reached thousands of people offering, like, free political education. And that was a big shift for me. And we were actually a member organization here at the People's Forum, which was extremely useful for us to learn and have a home, and shout out to the People's Forum. And that organization eventually sunset. Long story, but let's say, while the political consciousness was there, the ideology was actually kind of eclectic, let us say. It wasn't directed at all, as much as it needed to be. But it's okay, because you turn your L's into lessons, and I'm still organizing right now with a group called Theater Workers for a Ceasefire, which is a Palestine solidarity formation in the theater. We do everything from, like, protests to teach-ins to a lot of our work is about organizing for PAC-B in the theater. We host festivals, and we're increasingly moving more into, like, artistic production right now. I also have this kind of theater company called Necessary Labor, which is a phrase that Marx uses to describe the part of the working day that we essentially, generate the wages we're paid, and everything after that is for our boss. And it's called that, not just because it sounds cool, but because the theater company itself started out of a kind of study of capital and some other Marxist texts. And then we decided, like any good Marxist, you have to put your ideas into practice. And we became a theater company, and we do kind of like popular theater. And yeah, I would say, like, in closing, a lot of my work is like thinking through performance politics and pedagogy, and basically like thinking of those as like dials that you can turn up or down in any given piece of performance, but that like all three of them actually have to be present. Yeah. Oh, the one thing I'll just tease is, like, I work on a Broadway show, and like I'm like in Star Trek, the show, but like I think like that's the thing is like I personally don't care about talking about that stuff. I mean, good stuff. Like, check it out. Like, come see the show. I'm not poo-pooing it, but like, I think if anything, it's more interesting to me to talk about like, yeah, like the other things that I do that like that enables me essentially to do.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Well, my name is Cleo Reed, and Cleo was my great-grandmother's name. And I kind of began this journey just kind of going where the music is and where things were feeling good at a very young age. Similar to Chris, I was in a conservatory system, but prior to that, and in tandem with that journey, I was also meeting a lot of artists when I was starting about maybe 8 years old who were organizing and using politics in their work, which greatly influenced me, and I pay reverence to them tonight for their influence on my becoming. So my journey kind of has shifted and taken many different forms, often from the basis of survival. I never directly pursued commercial music, though. That was never a part of my journey. I understood, I feel like Chris put words to it perfectly, that like there was a different cultural industry being developed where I went to college, and I kind of had to compartmentalize, as air signs can do. And so I just didn't get in my feelings too hard about it, and I got my degree and I moved on. But I put out an album last year that I knew was going to be heavy and about labor and the working class in a very directed sense, and I had no idea how the cover was going to look or what the aesthetics of the project were going to be. And so the first people that I ever met with to speak about my album from a political lens were Hannah and Jalen here in this room, actually, which is something I just thought about today. And I came to them and I was like, I am an artist, and I just made all these songs about my experience with anti-capitalism and all this stuff, and I don't even know how I'm going to present it, but like I want, to like learn from y'all and feel supported and be in a confluent kind of like exchange with each other and everything. So I ended up doing that and first presenting it at Recess Arts because I was a session artist there. And I opted in to be a part of the assembly, which was like working with assembly youth. And I met with them every week and just kind of talked to them about their art. Like, didn't even really talk about my art. And just the things they gave a shit about and also the things that they didn't. And I learned a lot about their views and their takes. And I love the youth and they teach so much. And so my first presentation and first listening party, if you will, of this album was with a bunch of people who were my age, who were like pregnant or recently out of prison or organizing in their communities or waiting in immigration court and all of these things. And like that really helped shape the way that I would eventually, 4 months later, end up presenting my album to the world. So I grounded in community first and then before I stepped out into the public eye. So I will show a video of me. I'd like for you all to see it, of a song that I wrote called Women at War. Similar to Carsie, I have a kinship with the folkloric music. So even though I am born and raised in New York City and I grew up uptown. So I filmed this in Recess Arts actually on an off day. So I'm like, I'll get up too. What the fuck? Okay, enjoy.
Mama, are you happy when the job that you're working is taxing? Divisive, defenseless, quiet, aim to be daring. I wanna be loud and proud, this shit is illusion, the industry scares me. I thought since my titties were pretty, I conquer, not cower, I'm louder, I'm bigger. The women are at war. 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 They're asking me what am I wearing? I tell them no, watch what you say when you check for me. With each inch I bend to your knees, I'm closer than causing a quake on the ground floor. I'm clawing away at my beauty. Ugly, I'm crass, I'm choosy. I'm picky cause you cannot do me. Planting my feet in the mud. The women are at war. 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 Run the beaten road, do the city life. Smart mouth, I'm a bad wife. I came from the women that'll bust a door down, pick a fight with you, got that light switch, you know it's in my blood. No, when I rob it, check out for something. When I rob myself, check out for some. The women are at war. 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 Hold up, when did my body determine my gender? And when did your labels land on my agenda? Even when body don't feel right, body can function so body can survive. Body can survive. Hold up, when did my body determine my gender? And when did your labels end on my agenda? Even when body don't feel right, body can function so body can survive. Survive, survive. The women it's in my blood. Know it's in my blood. Know it's in my blood.
Wow, I guess we have some pretty incredible artists on this stage tonight. Give it up again for our 3 panelists. So I really want this to be more like a discussion, like not just, like ask a question, answer, move on to the next thing, but really feel like we're in conversation with one another. I do want to start with this point that Chris, you made about, that I thought was very interesting, about cultural work versus cultural industry. And I guess to pose the question to you first, but I think Carsie and Cleo, you both should respond as well. I mean, I think we have an interesting panel with all 3 of you being performing artists in one way or another. But I wanted to pose the question of balancing. How do we balance, as artists who are clearly taking a side? I would say that none of the artists on this stage are particularly in favor of the capitalist system or war or patriarchy or any of those things.
No, I love it.
But how do we balance the professional aspects of being an artist who has to sort of navigate the cultural industry? You being on Broadway or having to go on tour, whatever it might be, with the aspects of being an artist who is simultaneously fighting everything that cultural industry represents. Yeah?
Yeah, come on.
Well, I think first it's what. Okay, I'm gonna politics, performance, pedagogy, right? So forgive me if I lean into the pedagogy a little bit here, but like one of the big things that I've observed 5 years of doing political education, to artists, and with regards to this issue, is a kind of a purity that first needs to be dismantled, right? I teach and I study. I teach and I study contradiction in all things. And when we embrace the contradiction in all things, I mean, we all got to eat. We all, the vast majority of us have to have a job if we're going to eat. And so we can't escape contradiction. There's no pure place to work where you're not, on some level. And it's not just about no ethical consumerism. I mean, it's the whole wretched thing. So once we kind of accept that, it's about making strategic decisions. And maybe here where my mind goes is like, it's not about what I think is strategic, right? That's maybe the next thing. Now I would say an anti-individualism is like an important tonic to add to your contradiction in all things potion, which is like, okay, it's not about what I think is smartest or best, but it's like, am I a part of an organization? Am I in a community? Am I a part of a struggle? What do we think is the best, right? And like, how can we make strategic decisions that are actually good for collective groups of people? Of course, you don't get lost in that. You still have your personal values and morals and ethics, and you bring that to every conversation that you have with yourself and others. But a lot of like how I think about things is because I'm a part of something bigger than myself, and I'm trying to manage that that organizational and collective like mass responsibility. So, I mean, I'll try to give like a practical example, but there are definitely like certain, I work for, so the easy one is like my Broadway show. Like, it's just a show. Like, there's no potentially specifically nefarious themes happening in the show. So it's like, am I working for, a boss? Most of the money goes to them, and does that suck? Yes. But like, what am I gonna do about that, right? Paramount is a different story. I mean, I don't know. To be fair, I started working there before the new guy took over. But like, I mean, it's so complicated to say, Star Trek is like not really like hurting anybody, right? Like, in fact, if anything, there's a kind of pseudo-communist vision in the Star Trek world, which is actually maybe helpful for people to kind of like, you let that be their distraction for the evening. So, I mean, I think I'm always navigating my personal ethics with the topics of the show and these collective morals. I'll just say to go back to something I said earlier, okay, now I'm employed in the cultural industry. like now I have time and security. That means that like basically everything else that I do outside of that is for the movement and is for class, frankly, like class struggle. Like I don't need to work at a nonprofit, you know, to like do something good in the world. I can just do it with my friends. Yeah, so I'll put that in the pot.
I have an idea, but you go. Okay.
One thing that I am in full support of is just honoring every point of origin and honoring all the information you're taking in as like a resource to determine like where your opinion really lies. I find that I am in deep discomfort with having conversations where, like we're talking about honoring your job at like Paramount, for example, and knowing like, okay, this is a part of my life, and doing something deeply ethical is also a part of my life. And doing something where I'm in struggle with others is a part of my life, and I have to hold all of these things. And that can get overwhelming for any of us, right? Like it can get really difficult to feel like you're doing the right thing when there's a piece of you that has to pay a cost. So it's like knowing what you're doing, seeing what you're doing, and being like, how much of this is completely necessary for me to be able to eat, or for my kids to be able to eat, or what have you, right? And then it's like very easy to determine like where the story lies, I feel like, artistically for me. Before I pursued this, before I was an artist full time, I had so many jobs. During the pandemic, I was bagging groceries at Amazon, and before that I was working at the Apple Store, and before that I was working at Trader Joe's. Clearly, I was really good at keeping a job. I was not. And because it's not my gift. But, and it's not because I'm anti-capitalist. It's just because I'm bad at it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not good at that. What I am good at is telling stories and to be articulate. I know how to be articulate. Yes, but music for me is just a part of my worker, the side of myself, the worker side. That was like orchestra, 9 a.m., never had a free Saturday for 12 years. Of course you'll be fucking great at it. You know what I mean? Like, you'll be good at anything you do every single day for years. It's true. So I guess what I'm saying is not to shy away from being virtuosic or being skilled at something. It's more so like, how can my skill help transmute the deeper messaging that I care about, or the things that I really feel intrinsically, and remembering that that is just the vessel for the thing. Like if I became really good at knitting, I'd probably knit something politically engaged, because that is where my inspiration flows, and that's where I feel the most purpose-led. Does that make sense?
I think I would just add to this a little bit more about my experience of the music industry, because I didn't go to any kind of school, and I instead like left home at 16 and got picked up hitchhiking by somebody in a band and joined that band and went on tour. So my experience in the music industry has been literally gigging from the moment I could get out of my house to gig. And so because of that, like most of my jobs in music have been like just playing gigs for $50, playing gigs for $100. Easier to do in music than in a lot of other arts. I want to acknowledge there's not like a lot of $50 acting gigs floating around, I would imagine. But so a lot of my work before I had like a fan base or people buying tickets was still the same work that I'm doing now. But what I want to add to that is that, like, because I entered the music industry in like 2006 or 7, which was sort of like the middle of the end of the music industry. Like Napster already happened, people weren't buying CDs, like the labels were folding as I was trying to get a record deal as like a 20-year-old. So I spent like 10 years really chasing the dragon of like success in the traditional music industry, while that industry was collapsing, and I could see that. Like, I have eyes. It was clear that that was happening. And then something kind of turned for me as I became radicalized, where I was like, this industry is not actually supporting almost anybody anymore. Like and so why are we giving up our agency to this industry that like barely exists and is not going to like give me an actual job or a pension or allow me to retire ever? And when I realized that, like, the bribes have gotten so cheap now. Like, they're bribing us not to talk about Gaza for like $100 gig. That's actually insane. Yeah. So, so as I started to realize that, I started to just speak more openly from the stage and on social media about my actual political beliefs. And, you know, I'm not saying that is what changed things, but I am in a position now where I do have my own fan base, and when I go play shows, I'm selling tickets to my own fans who want to hear my songs, which is an incredibly privileged position as an artist. But what I want to share about that is, now that I'm there, like I just finished a tour where we played all sold out shows and we had PSL tabling at every show. And we got to do a fundraiser for legal support for people being targeted by ICE in Michigan. They raised 30 grand. And we got to do a fundraiser for unhoused people in Peoria, Illinois, and they raised 10 grand. And it's like, I think I just want to share, like, there is a thing after 20 years of like road dogging and like playing shit gigs and getting into like $200,000 of debt. I'm now in this crazy position where I can actually do what I believe is the most politically like salient thing, or the most valuable thing politically to be sharing with audiences, and it is actually even working. And I feel really blessed about it, and I only want to share it because I think people are not modeling it very much right now, how you would do that. So I want to just say, like, it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this point that was made, that there's no pure place under the system we live under, I think is an important one for all artists to remember. But I think it's more so about what we do with our position in these places, these levels that we are able to reach. How do we say what needs to be said and isn't being said by other people? Carsie, I wanted to ask a question that, again, I think anyone can speak to as well. But as a songwriter, if anyone has listened to Carsie's music in the audience or online or whatnot, okay, we got some cheers in the room. You make really direct references. You say exactly with your chest what it is you're trying to say. You know, you make the point about this is the shit that we're living under capitalism. Which is so important, because sometimes it feels like many artists just kind of like skirt around what it is that's happening. But the reality is we've gotten to a place in our society where we can't skirt anymore. There's nowhere to skirt because it's happening everywhere, right? And so I wanted to pose this question of, I mean, I guess to everybody here, you know, why is it important for our music, our performance, our art to be direct and to pose direct questions for our audience to grapple with?
I think I have a quick answer, so I'll start. But I think a lot of it is just my personality. Like my work has always been pretty direct, even before it was political. I use humor a lot in my work, and it's hard to be funny without like acknowledging a true thing. Like often humor is you say the truth of what is happening in a slightly off-kilter way, and that's funny because people don't usually say the truth of what's happening. So like I have a song called Elon Musk that just the opening line is Elon Musk is a fuck of a man. And that's hilarious to people because everyone already knows that that's true, but we don't walk around saying that. So I think a lot of it is just like my artistic personality. And the only thing I'll add is I've studied a fair bit the second Red Scare, so like the targeting of artists specifically during the Red Scare. And one thing that happened during the Red Scare, like, yes, they were arresting people and auditing people and making people talk to Congress and taking people's passports away and getting them framed up for crimes. But another thing they were doing is simply reframing their work and pretending that it wasn't political. And so I'm trying to make work that cannot be reframed by the FBI.
Yes. Because when we die, we don't need them putting in our bios and in our descriptions in the museums anything but what we were really standing for. Cleo, you mentioned specifically that you make music about labor, about the working class. I saw that you played at a Bernie rally as well and sort of mentioned, which I think you should speak to as well, because that is taking a clear stand, in terms of the politics of it. And I think you mentioned that your goal is to play for as many working class people as possible. I think that's clearly taking a stand as well. So I was hoping you could elaborate on that more.
Yeah, I'm like looking at Carsie like, twin, where have you been? Anyways, I know, I'm like, wait, okay. So, I'm a youngin', guys. I'm 27, so I'm still figuring this shit out with like making art and sharing it in that way. To answer your question, I was half, basically, you could imagine like I had this foundation of like playing in the street. Mom led a union, a black union at her job. Like that was my upbringing. Beautiful, yes, journalist, committed. And then I had this other side of like artistic elitism, grants, story, like pitching, trying to make money. And that was kind of like my newfound reality once I left my job, where I was an educator at 22, and just decided I wasn't going to look back. And it's just like a little bit of a crossroads where I was like, okay, there's a trajectory here where I could like gain all this upward mobility and people could be price gouged into being able to have access to my art. And then there's another path where I occupy spaces where the music can be free or things can be accessible, and I can kind of like pitch it and be in spaces that do that. But either way, I'm gonna have to do a dance, and either way, I'm gonna have to deal with the bullshit and bureaucracy of the thing. So it's just like the same package with like different bows on it, you know what I mean? When it comes to like actually monetizing art and then like becoming visible if you do decide to monetize your work, how that kind of takes shape. So when it came to that comment about me wanting to perform in front of as many working class people as possible, it was a necessary like psychological like need for me, like spiritually, like I needed that. I've seen so many like artists become mid-career and then it's just like, no offense to anyone here, but it's just like white guys with jobs watching, whole crowd. But not like working class jobs, like literally like, and then when they hit yes, do you think that she will have vinyl after the show? It's like very that. And I was like, wait, there's a world where me, with my aura, I could end up doing that. And I need to figure out how to not fucking do that. Hence the Bernie rallies and the things. Like, I don't agree with everything that Bernie does. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't take a photo with him because I was like, why do y'all want me to take a photo with the politician like they're Santa Claus? I have an intrinsic, like I seriously have, like I hold, there's certain things I have to make these weird decisions. And I have a team too. So it's like, they're like, I mean, your fans would like it if you did that. And I'm like, but I came for the teachers and the social workers and all the people in the audience who don't really get to see music in this space, who won't be able to come see me play with like Bad Bad Not Good for like $85 a ticket. You know what I mean? Like, which is real. So like, that's another real side of my life. So I was like, this is what I want to do. And it's a hard, it's like a hard line to walk. This is the only thing, I'm off tour. I was on tour last month. And then thank you. I'm like, thank you. This month I had off, and then I go on tour next month. Ciao. And then that's
what we call tour brain.
You know what I'm saying? It's like they start
Good
learning
to be
together.
here in Cleveland, folks.
Right. No, literally. I'm so happy to be here. Right. I was like, should I bring my guitar? And then I was like, wait, no, it's not a gig. Wait, no, I'm just leaving the house. Wait. Like, that was me today. But this month off, I was literally just People's Forum down. Like, I was here 2 weeks ago for this Lebanon fundraiser, and then I was here for this. It's a privilege to be able to have the time, to be able to be like, if I'm showing up, I want to show up for things that feel aligned. But it's also something that can really start at any time. And I think that's the thing that, like, gets forgotten, you know, when we look at our phones. It's like, once you put the phone down, it's like, wait, I can actually activate and be organized and, like, be with people who are aligned with me at any time. And there's no benefit to being token or being special. And, like, once that can get kind of released, that's when I feel like, oh yeah, working class people, who else would I be playing for? Like, no brainer, you know? So, yeah.
Directness, right? Like, that's what we're vibing on. I mean, I think, so the question was, why be direct? But I would actually, I'm gonna start this by saying, why not be direct? Who benefits if we are indirect? Maybe is a good question to think about. If we've taken a side, and I'll also say, I think this is a question of aesthetics. And artists make aesthetic choices. But if we are an artist who takes a side, then I think we have to try to map the line between our side and the aesthetic choices we make. So then I say again, why not be direct? I don't know. That's for everybody to decide. I mean, you're your own cultural organizer artist, so it's like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I think that's the question for me anyway, if I'm direct or indirect. And actually, what I would really say is it actually such a binary? I mean, this is kind of beyond the purview of this question, but I think actually there's maybe room for both, as long as we know where we're going, which is the whole premise, I think, of being an artist who's choosing taking a side. I think too often, like Juilliard, I'll just go back to this real quick, is this idea of vocational training. I have a lot of technical facility with acting that I'm very proud of because I studied it for 4 years. But I did not come out of that school with a single opinion about the purpose of art. And that was on purpose. So, yeah, I think if you know where you're going, which I do now, I mean, I can choose what aesthetic, but I will say this, and this is maybe my last, like, question. It's more of a thought exercise. You used the word rooted earlier, and I meant to say this in my intro. Toni Morrison talks about rootedness, and as a cultural worker, I think it's important to be rooted in something that is not this decadent, individualistic, competitive, soul-crushing bourgeois culture. You have to know where you come from. And I come from a long line of working-class black people, 5 generations deep in New York City. And I can tell you who each one of them were back to being a slave, and we were all here in New York City. So I hold fast to that as the world, you know, tries to tell me what kind of choices I should be making, how I should be feeling, what I should be doing with my time. But I often go back to my lineage to say, like, if I were under chattel slavery conditions, like, why would I, like, be indirect about my art? You know what I mean? Like, if I had, like, a class enemy, like, why would I try to be, like, indirect about the situation? Now, but again, like I said, maybe it's not such a binary. So you can think about many songs that we made during that time, right? Our spirituals, so-called, that actually were sometimes indirect. But again, why? Because they had to be coded, but they still contain clear instructions for those who are meant to know. So that's why I'm trying to be so dogmatic about it, but it's like, ultimately, like, when I'm like, I don't have to get past no censors yet. So it's just like, you know, I'm gonna be direct, like, why not? Like, unless it's fun, maybe not. But I do think the role of aesthetics, and now I'm kind of like going way too far, but sorry, I'll just wrap it up. It's like, you know, I think, like, what performance politics pedagogy, I think, like, for my aesthetics are about performance. I do think that these choices, you know, the summary is, yes, in service of class struggle, but I do think it is for us to open up spaces for people to receive data. You know, sometimes it's knowledge, sometimes it's feeling, sometimes it's something else, whatever you want to call it. But, like, art can do something in a way that, like, just reading a good old text by Lenin can't necessarily. And I think that also like how we flip between directness and indirectness should also help open up like aesthetic interventions into how people are able to like I just left a play about organizing. I just saw a play earlier today about organizing against ICE. And like I knew everything, but like the way that he collapsed time and space among different areas of the community and different, I didn't know that. You know what I mean? I didn't feel that. I never experienced anything like that before. And that's because it was a play. It wasn't a book, and it wasn't even organizing. It was art. And I think that that's an important distinction that also helps.
Can I just add one thing? Because I love the way you framed it, like, why not be direct? And then bringing up, like, spirituals are indirect at times because they're in a context where people might be killed or their families might be killed. That is not what we're dealing with right now in our art. Like, we're dealing with situations where we might be afraid of losing our funding. We might be afraid of losing our job or even just a gig. I hear from a lot of musicians, I don't want to speak up because there's this one gig later in the year at a blah, 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 and I know that they're Zionists or whatever. So I just want to frame it even more specifically. And a lot of the time we're not even financially afraid. We're afraid of being canceled or afraid of getting some nasty comments on our Instagram or afraid of one of our friends having a stern conversation with us. So I think like being really clear about what the specific issue is and why we aren't being direct about it, if we have an urge to be direct about it in our art, could really benefit us because we do a lot of self-censoring. And I talked about the Red Scare where like the FBI was targeting people, so they were doing censorship of art. We are not in that situation yet, right now. So in a way, we're like in a golden era between two Red Scares where you can get away with being really direct, and I think that we should as much as we possibly can.
Period, yeah. I just wanted to highlight, I really liked the commentary on lineage. I actually, before the panel started, I heard someone behind me, sorry to put you on the spot, actually I'm not putting you on the spot so much, but someone said art is a reflection of the person who made it. And I think that's just something for all of us to think about. Who said that? Okay, it's all right. You can be shy. But I do think that's something for us to be able to carry forward in our work. For us to know where we come from, who we are, and actually be able to bring that forward in our art is honestly one of the most important things that I think about in making my own art, I guess. But this takes me to the topic, since we're talking about it a little bit, and we're all here as artists against apartheid, right? I want to talk about Palestine. I think the Palestine movement has been one of the most open, instrumental times in history for people to declaratively take a side, to take a stand. You know, before October 2023, the topic of Palestine wasn't so much in the mainstream. Most people, I'm sure in this room, myself included, couldn't say that much about what was actually taking place in Palestine and what was being carried out against the Palestinian people, not just for that year, but for decades, right? And we saw an eruption of a massive, a worldwide movement that completely shifted the narrative, completely shifted the narrative in this battle of ideas about who is actually under attack here and what side do we need to confidently stand on. And I think artists and cultural workers, I mean, of course, there was the protests. How many of y'all were in the streets? Okay, all right. But it was the art and cultural workers who really decided to stand up and make their side known. Carsie, you mentioned you went on the flotilla. Chris, you know, theater workers for a ceasefire. I'm really interested for y'all to speak about these experiences as well. What opportunities have arisen now that we have actually made this stand that so many people have been historically scared to make, but now we're all out in the open saying free Palestine, you know, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which again was a culture that didn't really exist until we made it exist. And so yeah, I just wanted to post that for y'all as well.
Well, I'll talk a little about Artists Against Apartheid, which started right here in this building on, October 11th or something, 2023. We had a lot of conversations about how to move the culture very rapidly by enrolling artists in a political position. And I think like the public opinion on Gaza and Palestine and Israel is the fastest shift I've ever seen in my life, where like we went from whatever, it was like 30% support for Palestine in 2023, and now we're at 75% or something in polls. So like, or that's probably among Democrats, I don't know. Anyway, point is, the culture moved a lot, and I think organizations like Artists Against Apartheid and Theater Workers for Ceasefire, is that the name? And there are so many others, like there's so many cultural organizations that came out for Palestine very early, and I do think that we saw a real cultural intervention take place over the last couple of years. So I just want to like point that out in a room full of artists and organizers. Like, it is possible to make a cultural intervention. And it's not just you standing on stage saying something, it's you organizing your coworkers and your comrades and your fellow artists, because there was a huge sea change in what people thought. So I think we should be proud of our work.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most nefarious aspects of capitalism, in my opinion, is how it is able to kind of disguise and normalize its everyday oppression. And, I think if you had chains on you, you'd kind of know, like, this shit really sucks. But we go to work every day and don't kind of realize we're a wage slave. And imperialism is much the same, like rules-based international order. What the fuck is that? I mean, they don't care about the rules at all. It's rules for thee and not for me, right? And so this moment on a broad general level is we say a mask off moment. But for me, the video footage that like I saw and continue to see coming out of Palestine is like, and I'm actually not referring to the destruction. I'm referring to the people who survive and endure. I mean, how can you not be changed by that? Like, that's why when people like come at you for organizing for Palestine, I'm like, something's wrong with your soul, because we can talk about politics, and I'm always happy to talk about politics, but have you not seen what I've seen? I'm not doing this because I'm like a committed anti-capitalist. I'm doing this because I'm a human being. And I think a lot of people, if we do our work as solidarity formations in tandem with the struggle which is occurring in actual Palestine, I mean, we do our part to kind of actually take that human experience and guide it into a political consciousness. And I think what I'm really excited by is there's no going back from this. Like, the organization that has been built up out of this moment here in the United States around Palestine is something that is going to only get stronger and buoy us moving forward. So like for Theater Workers for Ceasefire, like I said, like, a lot of our early work, it continues to be about organizing for like the cultural boycott. But we've met so many amazing Palestinian artists, and we've made so many connections with theaters which are, not only sympathetic, but take up the boycott and give us free space. That we're now in a position to use this swell of people who are in this movement and who care about this movement to like not just be like, abstractly like it's going to be good moving forward. Like, no, like we got a squad now. Like, we can do shit, we can make shit. And so what I see our work as a cultural organization is like, they have hegemony and we have counter hegemony, right? Like, we can literally sow, and this I think where this idea of rootedness comes in. Me and Hannah were talking about this earlier. You can't force a change in culture. I mean, culture comes from the idea that there's earth that you have to till, you have to work. You don't choose the land, we're born into this muck, but we can plant seeds into it as well. And I think so many seeds have been planted that we're starting to see what's coming of that. It's amazing. It's important to remind ourselves of that as things do get quite scary in a lot of ways, but there's so many seeds have been planted, right? So in a weird way, I mean, the struggle continues, not to bring levity, but as we say of the Knicks, job's not done. But like, I'm pretty optimistic.
I've never felt more optimistic than I do in this current moment, honestly. Because the best culture is also born out of resilience, out of the struggle directly. us experiencing, interpreting our world around us and envisioning something else for our people and our future in our lifetime, not in some far off futuristic world that we're never going to see, but just down the street, I think it's been a really incredible discussion. I just wanted to pose one more sort of broad question. I think we've started to talk about it already, but if there are any ensuing thoughts that folks have to share before we move into discussion for other folks to start to discuss these things amongst other things is, what does it mean to be an artist that's actually taking a side, in this current day and age? Big question. But that's the whole topic, right?
What does it mean to take a side? It requires a lot more interdependence, a relinquishing of yourself as the individual, understanding that your art is a vessel to present questions, not necessarily to have answers. It is not about being the most politically minded or the person who knows the most. We've seen artists who build their brand on politics and then later get canceled because they were dependent on something that didn't really, what the foundation really wasn't there, right? The action wasn't there and the education was not there. I think being an artist who takes a side also, for me personally, it means honoring myself, honoring my shadow, honoring where I'm at in my own journey. Keeping a word bank, keeping tabs, keeping a list. I make a word bank of things that cross my mind. Like after this, I'm gonna write down the back of that Let Cuba Live t-shirt where it says, you can't blockade the sun. And just like collect so much information and collect it until you literally cannot anymore and you have no other choice but to just, I think it is like that listening and that sharing not happening at once for me that makes me an artist who can effectively take a side. And then I don't even have to like stop a song and be like, enchant. I do, but I don't have to because the art already tells you how I feel. And that's a hard place to get to, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Yeah.
Would this be a good time to share a little bit about this organization that I'm working on with some other musicians right now? I think this is a good segue. And Cleo brought up this idea of relinquishing the self and sort of like getting over your individualism, which like we get a double dose of it as artists because we're Americans already, so we think we have to like be the coolest, specialist, richest guy all the time. Yeah. And then on top of that, you're an artist, so you have to like be a genius and think of something original all the time. And I think the antidote to that is to have comrades and work in solidarity and become an organizer because it teaches you how to be a node in a network and not the coolest, specialist, bestest songwriter guy. And just to give an example of that, I'm working with some musician friends right now on an organization called People's Songs. It's not publicly launched yet, but it will be sometime this summer. And it's actually a relaunch of an organization of the same name that existed from 1947 to 1950, right in Greenwich Village, that was started by Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie and Alan Lomax. And their goal, it's actually so cool. Their goal was to collect songs for the struggles that existed at the time in the U.S. and actually became international as well. So they were collecting songs. They had these monthly bulletins with songs in them with little forewords about, like, here's the struggle in Minneapolis right now, and that's why we sang this song, and then it teaches you the song. But guess what else they had? It's so dope. They had a list of musicians who were willing to perform those songs at your political event. And so there was a hotline briefly that you could call in New York and be like, I'm here in San Francisco. We're about to have a union rally. Do you have any musicians who can come lead songs? And they would send you musicians to lead songs at your rally or your strike or your protest. So we're working on getting that started, and I bring it up because it's already just in the pre-launch phases. It's been a real exercise in the idea that the point of being a musician, in my case, the point of this gift is to help get the best songs into the movement and get the best songs out of the movement and share them with the rest of the movement. And it's not like I don't have to write them, actually. I can just sit down with some comrades and be like, you're at the anti-ICE protest, what are you guys singing? And then we can help, get those songs into the public consciousness. So we're focused a lot more on not writing the best song and getting all the credit and getting all the cookies, but finding the music that the movement needs and also the music that's coming out of the movement. So that feels really good, and it's putting my little ego to bed in a nice way.
Yeah. Beautiful.
If anyone wants to join people's songs, talk to me at the end and I'll take your email.
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean to be an artistic aside? I think, there are sides, right? I'm sure at this point in the course we know that by now. Marx talks about a class in itself and a class for itself. We are the working class. Yeah. The question is, are we going to do something about it? Are we going to do something for ourselves as a class, aware of it, right? When they fuck with interest rates or ask for $1 trillion more for war, and we still out here, playing games in the Strait of Hormuz, it's that's all class war. There are sides. So I think what we're hearing is being tethered to our side, really, that's the question is and there's a million ways. That's what's so good. You don't lose anything being a political artist because there's a million ways to do it. So it's it's still creative, it's still, special and unique, and everybody's still so interesting. But it's can you risk being tethered to your side at all times? Not letting it get it's not about you or your status or your creativity, your genius, but can you be tethered to your side? And there is a large degree of self-transformation in that, which is kind of beautiful. You're transformed through your relationship with your side. So it's also just allowing for that. I don't hang out with some people, not because I made a point to, because I don't have the time. I'm busy organizing. I can't hang out with people who just want to sit around doing nothing all day. I'm with my side. We're doing things for our side. So there's only 24 hours in a day. So, and it's not I didn't make some angry Instagram post about no new friends. It wasn't like that. I'm in praxis, I'm organizing and shit happens. So, yeah. Shout out me over there, one of my friends.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you so much to our panelists. I'm going to hand it over to Saidi.
Let's give another round. All right. We're going to do something a little different. So, I think you raised a bunch of awesome questions that we got to hear from our dear comrades about. We wanted to take a little bit of time, actually, for some of you all to talk with each other about some of your answers to some of these questions. We have a few of them on the screen, if we could go to the last slide. But also to spend time, I'm hoping that everyone's feeling their creative juices flowing and ideas. So we want to take a little bit of time for people to talk with each other, maybe form groups of 4 to 5 people, whoever's in your row, introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your practice if you're an artist or cultural worker. If you're an organizer or someone, share a little bit about yourself. And I guess take up this question of what does it mean to take sides in your own lives. And we'll do this for about 20 minutes. It's an experiment. Try it out. And then we'll come back. No, I'm serious, because I actually do want to hear how that is. Because as we said, we're about to launch more of these artist salons. And we are only able to know how effective it is based on if you tell us and share that experience with us. So really lead into the experiment and let us know. So we're going to do this for about 20 minutes. And we'll come back and do our large group discussion. As you know, we have the lovely rug here to step into the discussion. And we could talk with our panelists and with each other after that. So as a group, maybe even think of, in your little discussion groups, think of maybe what are some questions that you also want to pose in this space here. So does that sound okay? Do we want to try that out?
You can't be leaving the People's Forum without meeting someone and talking to someone new.
You gotta meet the people. All right, let's try it again. Does that sound okay? We're down to try that out? All right, well, let's see. All right, so. Are we down to try? Are we down to talk to our people? Are we down to order? Damn. I don't know why that was so hard to get at. All right, so let's do this. Like I said, 20 minutes. Turn to your neighbor, say, hey, neighbor. Let's form a group of 4 to 5 people, and then use some of these discussion questions. Do have her on Zoom. We'll make groups of 4 to 5, and we'll give a 5-minute warning when we come back.
That's good. You ain't wrong. That was great, y'all. That was really great.
That was so good.
Yeah, that was good.
Podcast together or something.
We learned a lot.
That's
I
good.
learned a lot.
Tuesdays at the forum.
I'm super down.
Write that down.
Did you record? I was thinking, did you record it?
Yeah, it's all recorded.
With, like video and the audio?
Yeah, everything.
We should definitely share. There were some moments that I was like, I was also learning and feeling, and like, I was like,
It was so good.
yeah, that was
dope. Yeah.
so nice to meet.
I'm so glad that you all were talking about the spirituals because Saidi literally, in the class that Saidi taught, she went
All right, everybody, we got about 5 more minutes. All right, everybody, wrap up your last sentences, and we're going to come back together as a big group right now. Right now. All right. Let's close the breakout rooms. Right.
I want to hit my teacher vibe and be like listening llamas. That's what I want to do right now. Yeah, this.
If you got any thoughts, write them down. There's some pen and paper around. Use that. Okie dokie. So we'll have about 25 minutes for Q&A, discussion, big vibe, big group chat, big family kind of feeling. Once again, like we did at the last Artist Salon, if you have a question, something you want to share, talk about your work, a piece, or a question that you've been grappling with, you can step up to the mic. I'll put this mic back there. And then if you're on Zoom, please use the Q&A feature, share your question and thoughts with us there, and we'll take it from there. Sound good? All right, let me put the mic back and then get in there. Don't be shy.
Hi. I'm curious about the topic of being like direct and indirect, specifically in regards to like, you know, writing music and being poetic, like using, say, allegories or words that aren't direct. Is there any way to still be revolutionary whilst doing that? Like, because I write, like, if I want to write, like, songs in a way that isn't completely direct, that obviously is meant to target the system, because I fucking hate the system, but if it isn't direct, like, well, weird microphone, how, is there any way I can do that, or can you tell me your experience as if you've ever written anything that is indirect, any films, any music, acting, or anything, how could I do that? Thank you.
I forgot to give this directional piece, so we're gonna do like multiple questions and then we'll pass it to our panelists and everyone to answer, and then we'll do a few of those.
Hey, my name is KG. Thank you so much for this awesome panel. I also wanted to thank you, Carsie, for posting about this class, because that's how I found out about it. So I've been really enjoying this course, and yeah, really glad that you're part of the panel tonight. My question is, you mentioned how you're infusing activism into your artistic work. And so if you could give some practical examples of how you do that and how you provide calls to action for your audiences, just like specific ways that you've made that happen.
What's up? Thank y'all for everything you're saying. I'm Jasmine Raphael. I'm an artist, I'm an actor, working in Broadway as well. I'm in Soho Reps Potluck right now. And, oh, as I walk, right. Yeah. My question is about, support, I think, about fiscal support when it comes to your art and your work. Is there a litmus question, a litmus test you ask yourself when accepting support fiscally? For example, I was on Broadway as you are, and that we take so much support from so many organizations that powers that partake in violence, and that was really hard for me. And then now being at, Soho Rep, that's a blessed opportunity, but then after this, what do we do? And even at Playwrights, a place like Playwrights Horizon, accepting support from places. And so I just wanted to know kind of what questions y'all ask yourself when it comes to your own work and accepting those sources of support for yourself.
Hi, I'm Natalie, but I'll give y'all a minute. Yeah. Oh, okay. So my question is, I'm very new to the whole, I don't want to say I got radicalized. I'm a Black woman in America, so there was that. But from a class struggle perspective, this is all extremely new to me. Like I'm experiencing my very first class struggle. I'm very young, and I have a piece of art that I want to put out about it. And while I am concerned, I'm not that concerned about public perception, because obviously your art is for you and you're giving it to people to share. I do still want to make sure it doesn't come off as insensitive, even though it is my experience. So how do you how do you share your story that can potentially, how can you share your story that showcases privilege and realize, then experiencing privilege being taken away, but without, offending or being mindful while you're sharing? That is very long-worded, but my question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deja. I have a couple questions from my group. So my first question is, how do you make sure that you're not just getting stuck in the creation of joy that comes with making art, and you are instead engaging, like helping people engage in the sacrifice and the labor that is required for organizing? And then also, all of you were mentioning, and I think like a very central theme throughout this course was that you should have a political home base as you're organizing as an artist. How have you guys gone about finding orgs that you feel really aligned with, especially Chris and Cleo as people with marginalized backgrounds? I mean, also, yeah, Casey as well, all of you guys, but just like ones that maybe overlook those marginalized identities and really center only class struggle.
I think that I could be of best support with the question about indirectness and also the question about accepting financial support, because my last record was completely funded through grants. So I think I could speak to that. And obviously this most recent question was great. Okay, wait, there's so many good questions. I'm sorry. Okay, yes. Okay, thank you so much. With indirectness, we were just debating about this earlier. We were actually having a very great discussion about it. And I was saying that I appreciate the veil, and I appreciate that not everything is completely explicit, because it helps me insert myself into spaces where I would not typically be. This is not me participating in some sort of jovial, clown-like, fake identity. This is just me honoring that people who are poor or in the struggle or marginalized do not spend every single day being miserable. We also laugh and cry tears of joy and rejoice. And so I try to honor that through the work. And if that feels like that needs to be explained or be justified, maybe it's just you just need to write more songs. I think that is the key. You might have a song that's political and you're like, oh, but it's not getting explicit. Just write another one. It's okay. Just keep writing, Accepting money. Yeah, so, this is a touchy topic. I think every artist has a right to feel how they feel and accept or not accept money from whoever they feel like they don't want to accept money from. I am not in the business of pressuring anyone to participate in something that doesn't feel good. I played a show at Brooklyn Museum like a couple years ago, and there was a protest for Gaza happening like during my performance, and people got kicked out, and I grieved about it for about 5 or 6 months and had to really reground my practice, and that's where I kind of regrounded into a more politicized practice before my album came out, actually. So it's definitely something that hits home for me personally, because I was like, I don't want to be in alignment with Brooklyn Museum if they're dealing with people like this. So, and dealing with organizations like this and co-opting diversity or inclusion. But that also showed me that like everybody has their faults. All of these organizations have their faults for the most part, the power, the ones that are wielding the power here. So it's important to just like be mindful and be clear. I do a good call to action for that, that's less heady, is that I have a values kind of sheet that my team has, my manager has, my agent has, my lawyer has, that basically has a bullet pointed list of shit that I don't fuck with and things that I don't feel aligned with politically or ethically, and things that I do value. And so when new collaborators are coming into my space now, they are aware of that. And that really like weeds a lot of people out, because then they're like, oh, well, I can't be, you know, whatever, XE, you know, so many different oppressors. So yeah, those are my shorthand answers for those two questions. And I think in terms of not offending people, I think just finish it. Just finish the work, because it will find the people it needs to find. You can't worry about whether someone's gonna like something while you're making it. You will never finish it. Do not do that. That is a really bad idea. But it is good to like trust yourself and honor, be in service to the art. If the art is saying be more explicit, be more explicit. If it's saying not to be, don't be, but just be in service to the work, you know? So, yep.
I think offending people is half the fun, really.
Truly. I'm in a big support of offending people, especially with what we're working on. I think it's important to like make things that are offensive. We all like smiled at what we did, but I'm sure for every smile, we have seen people be like, this is, you know, and post all these negative things in opposition to, and are not on our side, you know? So.
I think I can address a couple of these questions with one topic or one response, which is, like, I want to talk about finding an organization and also the reason that we're constantly saying join an organization, or some of the reasons. So I'm in the PSL, which I know a lot of people are in this room, I would guess, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I joined in 2020 during the George Floyd protests. And at the time I joined because I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I gotta just do something. Actually, my therapist made me join. That's true. She was like, you're not gonna feel better talking to me. You're gonna have to do some work. And so just join something and do some work. And she was so right. I feel so much better from being in an organization. And the reason is, like, there's a lot of things about it that are great. And one is, when you're in an organization, that means you have comrades that are thinking about politics the same way you are. And that means you don't have to figure everything out for yourself. And it's a very like capitalist, individualist idea that like you're supposed to come up with a take and then come up with how to release it and come up with how to implement it and come up with how to do activism at your shows, one of the other questions. I did not come up with any of that shit. Right. I got that from being in discourse with people in this building and other people in the PSL and other friends and comrades. So you have to like slough off the concept that part of your work as an artist is like having a great take and expressing it perfectly. Because actually that is not any of your work. That's work for you to do with your comrades in solidarity. And it's so much weight off your shoulders when you can like take a deep breath and be like, it's not up to me how to implement activism at my shows. I'm gonna call a meeting with my Signal chat and we're gonna figure it out together. So just to answer that one other question, because it was addressed to me directly, how to do activism in artistic work spaces. So like literally the PSL is tabling at my shows, and that's because having discussed it with my comrades, it feels like that's the best way I can tour in 50 cities and connect people to their local organizers in each city without having to like source an org in every place separately, which would just literally be so much more work. The PSL knows what's going on in every city because we have branches. And so we can go to Cincinnati and we can go to whatever, Florida, and be like, here are your local organizers, talk to them. And it's like efficiently connects a lot of people. So that's how I came up with that strategy. I didn't come up with it, we came up with it.
I'm going to try to bundle this idea of activism, calls to action, not getting stuck in the joy of making, and indirectness into something we were talking about earlier, which is, I think these are questions of formal intervention, like in your art, like with the form you choose. And I was saying earlier, this comes up a lot in Marxist artists, but the earliest mention I could find is in Gramsci's Prison Notebooks, where he's like, don't worry so much about content. Like as you study and organize and engage and struggle, like you'll have ideas for the content of your art, but actually what you need to kind of really put a lot of credence on is like the form you choose to express those ideas. There's a similar idea that comes from Marx, right? That like ruling class ideas correspond to like the who owns the stuff in a given time. So we don't turn on, the news and see kind of both sides, the side of the oppressed when we turn it on, right? It's not that it's an evil machine, but they just would rather not air that stuff. So a lot of the forms we inherit for how to tell our stories and get our content across are inherited from those ruling class kind of forms. And so that the Marxist artists or the revolutionary artists should actually seek out to create new forms to express what might be the same old ideas, but just make sure that they get through. As a theater artist, one of the ways that this is comes to me most clearly is from Bertolt Brecht, who, I love this quote so much, it's like my favorite one. He said, "Petroleum resists the 5-act form." I love it because it's basically a poem. But and when he's writing, petroleum is connecting through jet travel and it's connecting the world in a way that it hadn't been connected before. So this idea you have a kind of 5-act play that happens in a drawing room and it says something about humanity and everybody feels good, like they learned something. He's like, that's not actually gonna, in this interconnected age, I don't know that the drawing room is the best place to put drama that actually helps us understand the times. And we're still doing those 5-act fucking drawing room dramas and stuff. You know what I mean? How many? You ever go to a place? It's like somebody's porch or somebody's kitchen. It's like, my God. But so how do we tell the story of anti-imperialism when we're limited to a kitchen? I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done, but certainly we can make some advances in the dramatic form from the past 150 years. So like, this is where the effort goes. So all these questions, I mean, do whatever you want to do. Last metaphor I'll say is if you're playing like a basketball game, and there are two sides, your number one job on your side is to win the game. So a lot of times as an artist, it's like being useful to winning the game. That's your question. If you're gonna be formal, indirect, if you're gonna have joy, when it's time to cut it off and get that thing out there and put it in front of the people and stop feeling so good about, that's because you have you're useful. You're useful to a game that must be won. So a lot of times I just think that we kind of forget the stakes of that actual material reality, and like reminding that helps inform the practical choices we make along the way.
I know I'm just the moderator here, but I did want to respond to a question, if that's okay. Oh, you can respond if you want.
That's the one, right?
No.
Do yours and we'll come back.
Okay. So I don't want to fully butcher this question, but there was a question about how do we make sure that we don't get stuck in the joy of making art, the excitement that comes along with making art. How do we move people to make the sacrifices necessary in struggle? And I might be butchering that question, but I just want to say, I have been making art and organizing as two things together for about a decade now. And I think it's really important to not dichotomize those two things as separate. I think it's our duty actually to infuse the production of art and culture into our work of building the struggle and building the movement. The movement is hard. It's hard, and nobody's gonna wanna do it fight the fight unless we do infuse that joy and the creativity and the life and the vibrancy into that every step of the way. I mean, and this is a practice that has taken root historically. I mean, we think of the slave songs that were developed as people were literally dying in the fields, you know, but they were singing along their brothers and sisters. They wade in the water. We think about people actually making the ultimate sacrifice in opposition to the chains of chattel slavery, and singing as they did it, you know. And you know, in my introduction, my family's from Haiti, and so I hold the significance of culture and actually making the revolutionary process take place so important in my own practice. And like, again, these are very hard things. We can't even imagine. We haven't seen a revolution in our lifetime here in the United States, right? And so we can't even fathom like the level of difficulty that will be. But we have to ensure that we are infusing the songs, the practice of making our posters and our banners together, and understand that these things are inherently connected, that they have to be in us building this new world that we're saying that we're building.
Got to bring the party to the party.
I realized that we didn't talk about, we didn't answer your question. We didn't answer a question about being marginalized in class versus race. Which I think I don't want that to go unnoticed. And then also, we didn't talk about my own family history and like shit like that. So, sorry. I know I'm speaking about it loosely like that, but it's okay, it's my business. So, just for context, like, for me, class and race in this current artistic life that I'm leading, and also just in life, have always had an intersection, right? And so I think a part of gaining a better political education is just understanding like how can one side of my life inform the other? And for me, it was through understanding my family's history. So my grandfather was a blues musician, speaking of spirituals, and my family is documented from Texas, 5 or 6 generations back, yes, H-Town. And in that process, they were documented by like the Federal Writers Project, which was about freed slaves and like people kind of sharing what their lives were like being enslaved. And my great-great-grandfather Knapp talked about what his life was like before when he was enslaved, and like also his life after being enslaved. And then I have another relative in the W.E.B. Du Bois book, The Souls of Black Folk, in a different story. But both of these stories talk about their relationships to their work. And we talk about slavery sometimes as if it is like a separate occurrence that has happened because of the like violence and the brutal nature of the history. But I think that we often forget that this was like a job, an obligatory job, just like people have jobs now or are oppressed now and living under oppressive structures now. And so I don't think that it's like a big lift to like integrate race in your history and your relationship to race into the work, and it doesn't necessarily supersede your understanding of like class struggle in your art. And it doesn't have to. And they can be hand in hand, and they can kind of inform each other. And that blend kind of just leaves it up to you. Like if you grew up in an elite black family, for example, like if you grew up elite, address being elite, address being black, address all of those things, and like allow all of those things to have their space. And if there are people who are like, I grew up black and poor, this is fucking offensive, that's completely understandable. But also I think it's important to understand a class system outside of the bounds of capitalism, which follows a totally different caste system than what we're kind of taught and conditioned to understand about class. And so I can talk more about that with you after, but I just didn't want that to go unnoticed, that I am black and I do be making stuff and I do be making class stuff, and it's all good. It's all good. It's all can help, you know?
I just quickly add on the organizational point to that question of like, Robin D.G. Kelly, Stuart Hall, my goat. He would say that race and gender and everything is a modality in which class is lived. And actually, it works the other way around too. Class is a modality in which race is lived. And so any organization that is seriously wrestling with the question of class has to wrestle with questions of race and gender. And so the question about how do you map that out, I mean, you should kind of know. On the one hand, I want to say you should kind of know. You shouldn't be. But on the other hand, I do want to say, you know, we exist in a time when it is common to like over bifurcate ourselves into like little sub causes and ally groups. And so we are actually kind of predisposed to like be vigilant. I would actually say to use therapy babble, but like hyper vigilant, like when we're in spaces. And it's like you kind of have to like also check yourself to be like, all right, I'm actually coming out of a context where this class shit is kind of like in the contemporary moment, kind of like still kind of permeating and like. So maybe I have to like also like I would just say sniff it out, like be like give it time to like sniff it out, and then if you find that like the class project is devoid of race, like get out of there, you know what I mean? But it might look a little different at first. I mean, it certainly did for me. I was coming out of a context where, you know, it was like, never mind. I'm gonna stop talking.
No, that's facts, and actually like that made me think like about what you're saying. Like that is a different viewpoint than neoliberal identity politics. So like none of us on this stage are like talking from a framework of neoliberal identity politics, which is like, I'm black, so that means this. I'm gay, I'm queer, so that means this, right? We're talking about something completely different that falls under a different paradigm. And so like, that's just important to understand when you're hearing our answers about race, that it's like, it's not to dispel or dispose of and be like, it's not an I don't see color take. Right, because that is a neoliberal. That's where neoliberalism was kind of in opposition to. That's not the take. So I just want that to be clear when we're answering this question. So yeah.
I don't know who did this. I know I'm short, but damn. Thank you. I'm just gonna hold it for now. All right, we have I'll say about like 5-6 more minutes for this part. So I'm gonna raise 2 questions from Zoom and then open it back up to in person. So one person says, I'm curious to know what you feel about Shiloh Tumo's quote, you either choose a side or you end up finding yourself on the wrong side. And how do you stay grounded when all these external pressures you all have discussed can pull you in different directions? And then another question is, I guess, what are your favorite theories, pieces of theory, books, texts, anything that you read that spoke to you on this journey that you would like to share? Yes, what are your thoughts on the quote of this is the quote, you either choose a side or you end up finding yourself on the wrong side, and how do you stay grounded? The quote ended there. The question is, how do you stay grounded when all these external pressures you have discussed can pull you in different directions? Hold on, this could be a sound. Yeah, anyone in person can raise. Oh, swag. All right, I'll take maybe 2 or 3 more questions from in person, then we'll pass it on to y'all.
Hello. I am not short. It's always an option. I'm curious to hear y'all's takes on, once you personally have come to be in the side that you're in, how you bring other people along with you. As an example, I'll use my sister, who just graduated from an acting conservatory, who had a small part in a Disney movie, and we had a conversation about boycotts, specifically about Disney. And she was very firm in not wanting to boycott because that would in turn, because she's in a movie, would in turn sort of damage her financial stability or whatever. And so there's a lot of people I know, especially having a lot of family members who have, I had my brother tell me this quite literally a couple weeks ago. I used to be a corporate Democrat, and now I'm, on this other side, right? But how do you get those people who are very interested in this cause, in bringing people together, and take that interest and help them turn it into action?
Hi, everybody. I'm Corinne. I'll make it quick and light. I'm curious. A lot of the things that I'm exposed to through other artists. So I did not grow up here. The education system I grew up in did not really touch on slavery and the history of the U.S. So a lot of it I actually learned through Oscar Brown Jr. and other artists that would like touch on it on a very direct way. He's the best, by the way. Definitely check out his art. Rest in peace. Dead Pioneers is like also a really, really political indigenous punk group. I'm wondering if each of you on stage could like mention, if you have, I mean, I know you mentioned Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie. I wonder if there's other artists that are firmly political that you would recommend. Please be my algorithm. Thank you.
Maybe we could do a round of recommendations because, sorry, there's one more question first. Two more, sorry, never mind. Let's think about it though, because we had a request for theory recs and a request for music or art recs, so we'll get them going.
Hi, my name is Pamela, and I'm curious to know what catalyzed your political consciousness. Maybe if you could integrate a bit of your personal history so we get to know you a bit better. And also how you integrate your spirituality into this consciousness and vice versa. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Corey Terrell. Thank you so much for this panel. I just wanted to ask, when it comes to the understanding of taking sides, this is really difficult for me because as a dark-skinned black male, I do feel a sense of danger when it comes to defending people who are underprivileged, being massacred in other countries, being underrepresented because of capitalism. And so I want to be a voice for that, but I struggle with that when it comes to my own safety and thinking about that. But then also, I find this difficult because, when Kamala was running for president, I was super excited. I was part of a lot of different teams. I was doing all the knocking on the doors. Same thing for Mondani. But the thing is, when she didn't win, I was so flabbergasted because I was like, wait, no. I was like aware. This was clearly happening, but it was because I was on a side. I couldn't see the other side. I didn't understand what was happening in the other side. And I find myself very confused with how to take a side, but also how to actively understand what's happening with the other side and engage with showing the other side our side. Because there's a lot of us against them, and it genuinely is right now, us against them. There's no way for it not to be. But I think a lot about Martin Luther King, or I think a lot about the representation. There was a situation in the South where there was a black woman and a KKK member, and they were forced to work together, the system, the educational system, and they became best friends, right? But you wouldn't think that, right? You wouldn't think that when you meet a KKK member, how can you be best friends? But right now, in this radical, authoritarian, with this full move, conservative nonsense, right? Fascism. There's clearly a new rise of sides, and I'm trying to understand how I can be a voice, or am I meant to be a voice for people that are not maybe always listening, right, to our voices. But then if we don't listen to one another, then how can we grow? That's really hard for me to understand. Thank you.
I think we should start with round robin of recommendations while they're fresh in our minds. Theory-wise, I think the two most useful pieces of theory I've read as an artist are The Prison Notebook, Gramsci, and Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher. Those are both specifically addressing the role of culture in revolutionary politics. And then I would add to that all of the works of Ursula Le Guin, who isn't actually even at the same place that I am on the political spectrum, but was such a beautiful writer. She was able to The Dispossessed is one of the first books that radicalized me when I was 16, and it's just a sci-fi novel about what if there was a capitalist world and then there was a moon that was doing something else, which people will argue a lot about what they're doing on Anaris, but anyway. It's a great way to immersively imagine a different future. And then as far as like music recs, I'm really into this Canadian band called The Burning Hell right now. And who else am I into lately who's actually definitely radical? I'm not even going to add it. I'm going to leave it at The Burning Hell. Check them out.
Some of my favorite texts that have radicalized me, I mean, I went through like a Sadia Hartman, you know, Fred Moten era. Highly recommend either of those authors. But I think Spillers, I really like, right now in the past 3 years, in the process of making my project, I was thinking a lot about AI, and I really recommend Race and Technology by Ruha Benjamin. Somebody better time alarm went off. And then How to Go Mad Without Losing Your Mind by Lamar Jarrell Bruce, which is about Black radical creativity and art and intersects all of these beautiful comparisons about westernized madness, spiritual madness. There was a mention about spirituality, what it means to be a seer or someone who is clairvoyant, and madness in that sense, and how these artists kind of use these different sides of themselves, what people may understand to be schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or what have you, and like also the spirituality and how those things kind of intersect and inform each other in Black art over the past 200 years. Great book, amazing book, would recommend, will radicalize you. And in terms of musicians, right now, I'm not gonna name anybody who's alive, and it's not because I'm a snob. It's just, no. But I would recommend someone that I always bring up a lot is Sweet Honey in the Rock and Bernice Johnson Reagan. Amazing, just vocal music, political vocal music. And my favorite puppet makers right now are Poncili Creacion, which is like this Puerto Rican puppet troupe group that I saw that was really amazing and super radical. So I was really amazed by that work. So those are my 2 recommendations.
You know, I always say this, Capital Volume 1, but really, you think it's hard, read it with a group of people, get study guides. The PSL puts out a good one. David Harvey has a classic one. There's this German guy named Michael Heinrich. He's sassy, but I think he's my favorite one, to be honest. When I read it with a group of people. We all split up. We had different reading guides, so we could basically all, even if you weren't using it, you could hear from people's synthesis. I really recommend it. It will change your life. And actually, a lot of these questions about what should I do, even though it's a critique of political economy, the way this guy writes, he writes so well. And he writes in this way, Derek R. Ford, who's a PSL comrade, talks about this idea of critique and essentially, critique and display. Like, here's what's going on. Sometimes it's journalistic. Sometimes it's like, here's why it's going on. And like, you go through whatever 400, 500 pages of that, and you come out a new person. So I really recommend that, actually. And if you don't want to do that, he wrote this thing called Wage, Labor, and Capital and Value, Price, and Profit. But these are really good because these were actually speeches he gave in front of what were essentially unions. So they're really written like dramatic monologues, and it gets me every time. In fact, I want to do a podcast where we just do dramatic readings of these, because you can imagine him just like getting people fired up about being exploited. You really feel it on the page. Like, I gave it to my now fiance, but my partner at the time was like, read this, baby. We were like at the park, and she was just like emotional, because the way he writes that shit. And if you don't want to do that, A People's Guide to Capitalism by Hadass Tir, that's just like very straightforward language. And if you don't want to read that, Talking to My Daughter About Capitalism by Yanis Varoufakis. That shit's like 50 pages. It's literally so he could talk to his daughter about capitalism. But like, do Capital Volume 1.
I just want to add 2 podcasts that have been really helpful for me. The Upstream podcast, and this one is a little more niche. The Blind Boy podcast. He is an Irishman with like the most incredible voice, and he just tells a story that it's an hour long, but it'll be like, the story is like how neoliberalism ruined the housing market, but it's like beautiful and poetic. He's an artist, and it is art, and I highly recommend that podcast.
Okay, so if you need more recommendations after that, I have a couple. Two books about art and culture that have really changed my entire understanding of the topics. One, not even to be niche like left TM, but it's a book by Mao Zedong called Talks at the Yan'an Forum on Literature and Art. I think that book alone, actually, it's not very long, and it's actually not a very difficult read, but it really changed my understanding of what it means to be a revolutionary artist in a revolutionary process. So you have to understand it's written in that context, but still, I think there's a lot of valuable lessons in it. Also, On Socialism and Man in Cuba by Che Guevara, incredible text that actually opened my eyes so much to thinking about how do we reconceptualize what man is. Like, and by man, he means just like humans. Becoming the new, like creating and becoming new people entirely, because that's actually what is going to be entirely necessary for us in overthrowing this nasty, decrepit system that is making us all freaking robots. Like, are we even full humans? We are not. And so that's an incredible book, not a book. Well, actually, it is a small book, but it's on Marxist.org too. You can find all these things on Marxist.org. And then last thing is I want to recommend Claudia Jones. If you have not actually heard of her, please do your research on her. She is an incredible organizer. She's a Caribbean lady who started Carnival. So shout out to her. But she's also an incredible writer. And she wrote a lot about imperialism, anti-imperialism, and does it so eloquently in a time where, I think also there weren't a lot of Black women in the space that were writing these analyses as well. So I couldn't recommend her enough. She's actually my full artistic inspiration in many ways.
I want to try to. Are we still going? 5 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna try to make this quick, but I want to bundle up how to bring people along with you, turn a shared interest into action, how to take a side but kind of engage the other side, and this kind of us versus them idea, and also this question of what catalyzed my political consciousness. Sometimes people phrase this as like, what radicalized you? And I lately I've just been saying, no one thing. It kind of keeps happening over and over again. It's a journey. The initial thing would definitely be the murder of Trayvon Martin, and in particularly the girl I call my nemesis. I was dating her at the time, but she had worked for the first Obama administration as like an intern. And when that was all going down and I was so dissatisfied with Obama, she was like, well, Chris, he's not the president of Black Americans. He's the president of all Americans. And that's when I knew, like, I got to associate with different people and, like, fix my life. So,
you got to quote her for she can
forever.
Never
She said forever.
get out of that. That sucks.
Yeah.
Damn. Girl, I'm sorry. You said that.
What I will characterize, broadly speaking, and lovingly and respectfully, as the failure of the Black Lives Matter movement. What do I mean a failure? What I mean by, right, we know that the year after George Floyd's murder, there was like a record increase in murders of civilian by police, right? So I don't mean like nobody was doing good work. I just mean the issue, the core issue, which of course was a structural root issue, did not get meaningfully addressed. In fact, it wasn't just stuff like that. We got all these weirdo local Black mayors, like, not just do nothings, litter all over it. Weird people in weird suits, like, y'all know what I'm talking about? Lori Lightfoot, okay, people sort of forgot about her. But, but I mean, like, this is what we have to show for that movement. And even Bernie comes up a lot, right? We thought something was gonna pop off, and we saw not so much what the Republicans did, but what the Democrats who were supposed to be the good guy did. And that was the moment like, okay, I gotta change something up, right? We keep going. I think, the pandemic was supposed to be a turning point, and it was for a lot of us, and it is still in my political historical memory. But all this to say, for me, I'm constantly dissatisfied and reevaluating who I'm going to be in movement with turning my dissatisfaction into action. And so to talk about these other questions about like, how do we turn interest into action? The metaphor I always give here is like, okay, you like blue, I like purple, I like red, you like spicy food, I don't. We're all different, right? We're all little special snowflakes, but we all have like a broken street light on our block. It doesn't matter what we feel or who we are individually. We have a shared problem. And so we funnel all of that energy into collectively solving that problem that affects us all. And we realize actually it's good to be different. It's okay to have you like this and I like that and I do this and that. But we actually have a whole lot in common, and we actually can come together, not just for streetlights, but for all kinds of things. So like tying together my own personal journey and the people I meet along the way, and like, it's like that's how we also, I'm sorry to say, but the KKK and me, this is spicy. We're actually not that different, right? Like at the end of the day, like we're still affected by that street light. Like we could do a materialist analysis about like why they had the ideology they do and why I had the one that I do. But like we're all affected by, the sides are not, that's not at the sides actually. The sides are like billionaires, like capitalists, imperialists, and us. But again, how do we address that? Well, again, we address that through collective activity towards shared problems. So sometimes we get a little lost in the weeds of like these those actually aren't real differences. They're just like personality quirks, you know what I mean? I'm not, sorry, racism is not a personality quirk, but hopefully, I'm trying to talk quick. Hopefully you know where I'm going with this. All right, I'm done.
I think I can take this and run, actually, because we spoke about this a little bit on the break. You guys know the phrase, the personal is political? Everybody knows it. People usually are using it when they're like trying to sell you a water bottle, right? The personal is political. Use this glass water bottle and you're saving the environment. That's how it's used in culture right now. I took it upon myself to figure out where that phrase came from, and it came from an essay in the early 1970s from a Marxist feminist. And what she actually meant is exactly the opposite of how people use that phrase. What the essay says is, you think you have personal problems. You think you don't have time to hang out with your kids, and your husband didn't do the dishes, and you didn't make enough money to buy the whatever. What you actually have are all political problems. These are problems of society that we deal with as individuals. Now, the reason this is important is because when you're trying to enroll people in your political ideas, the way you do it is you talk about our shared political problems. And like a broken street light might seem like a personal problem, okay, in some way, like, oh, you didn't have light on your whatever. But actually, it's a political problem. And that's true of almost all the problems that we are all facing in our individual lives. And that is how we enroll people. We point to our shared political problems. So what she actually meant is, the political is personal. So we have to like flip that and reverse it, and that is how we get people on our side.
Very well said. Wow. Yes. I think that there's another element here in terms of like bringing people along with you, is that remembering that people are temporary and that it's a constant learning with everyone. And it's like people that you might have a shared view with at one point in your life, you move on, you grow, you become more educated. And then those people, what role they play in your life may shift, and that is okay. And I think that that is how you're going to effectively make art for a long time. Organize with people and understand that like we are organizing with each other because that is what the moment needs, not what my aesthetics need, not what is going to look cute on Instagram, not what the person who I look up to will judge me for, but like truly beyond obedience, you want to be aligned with these people for this said cause. You identify the cause and you meet the need, and then you move on. And maybe it's the Aquarian in me where I'm like detached, but I'm serious though, because it's really gonna help really organize and really move a lot of things forward when you're not caught up in some of these like things that some of these questions kind of spoke to, which is like this neoliberal identity politic of like, oh well, we were aligned on this thing, and like I thought that you was my brother, and then you actually like want to be rich, and I'm confused, and so. I think it's okay to like not understand everything about every single person that you're going to be working with, and just identifying a shared need. And that for me and my experience with organizing, that makes things a lot easier, especially when it comes to like not just political organizing in my own communities, but also like creating projects that are meaningful. Because there might be someone who may not have the history of being the most radical or the most interested in dismantling these systems, but wants to help you because they understand your humanity and your intention. And it's up to you to decide if you're going to continue to stand firmly on your side and draw a line on the sand and say, well, you can't help me because your parents are from Alabama and they support Trump. Or you can sit with yourself and be like, wait, but my parents don't tip people in the fucking restaurant, you know, and realize like we actually have similar issues going on here that are both elitist and very disparate and very detached from what we need right now in terms of just understanding our shared struggle. So that's my feeling about sides. It's like Chris was saying, like the other side is truly a mirror. We are mirroring each other. My mother was, shout out my mom. I wish she was here. I love her. She's not dead. She works up the street. Sorry. I wish she was here tonight because she's dope. And I can't even talk about the shit she'd be getting persecuted for because she'd be like, don't talk about that. So I got to stop. But the point is that when she was in high school, she led the African American History Club in Bowling Green, Kentucky, in the boonies, in the country, and invited the KKK to come talk. Yes. Right. 15 radical as, you know what I mean? Like, you know? And it's just like, I just think about that and I'm like, how, and when I was younger and less informed about things, I was like, how could you even have a conversation with those people? Knowing that like, and you know, it's like, it's funny because then you learn so much and you're like, wait, oh my gosh, we're like all not so different. And we just need a deeper understanding of each other so we can find like a shared solution. And she later dedicated her life to years and years and years and years and years and years and years of writing about city politics and specifically like campaign scandals and then social services and then real estate and now the Metro desk at the New York Times, which we all know. With that being said, though, I think that like, you know, that is what radicalized me is like seeing someone who was from the country and from a very conservative like environment, not like amongst her family, but like, you know, in her environment and realizing like, wait, these people didn't even have time to find any like fucking political home. Like my grandma was trying to pay her bills. And like that, whoa. And then that statement alone is what kind of took me out of just race and more into like class and understanding that we are like under this shared oppression with each other. That is kind of, those are the stories and the things that have radicalized me personally, but yep.
Yes. Just a really quick quote, because I just heard it and I don't remember who said it, and I wonder if anyone can tell me who said, the opposite of fascism is solidarity. Does anybody know who said that? That's what your mom reminds me of, Cleo. The opposite of fascism is solidarity. Yes. So even the idea that there's sides, that quote is really illustrative for me about what the sides are. There's fascism and there's solidarity. Those are the two, another way to describe the sides.
Okay, everybody. Well, I think we're about at time. This has been an incredibly rich, thought-provoking discussion. I think we should give it up again for our panelists.
And for the moderator.
As we wrap up this panel, as we wrap up this incredible course, The Artist Must Take Sides, I think we all should leave here and regrounding ourselves in this irreplaceable role that artists and cultural workers play in taking a side and building a new world. And obviously, we don't have all the answers here on this panel. I think this was a great discussion, but there's really big questions that have been asked in this discussion. And I think it's so important to have spaces like this where we come together, we learn together, we exchange. And also, this is one step. This is the first step. I think then it's all up to all of us to decide what we'll do with this information, what we'll do with these new thoughts and considerations that are turning on all of our brains right now after some of these deep-ass conversations that we had on this Tuesday night. So I definitely implore everybody here to take that duty seriously and to think about what your role is, whether you're an artist, you're a cultural worker, whether you're a worker living under capitalism here in the United States of America that's waging war on every country around the world. we have some time to mingle, to exchange. We'll have Front Yard FM DJing for us. We'll have some drinks, I think, in the back or wherever, whatever. But meet somebody new. Continue the conversation. Again, this is just the beginning. Thank you, everybody.
If any musicians want to be on the mailing list for People's Songs, come give me your email.
All right, and with that, that closes us out with the Artist Must Take Sides. Just a quick note, like we said in the beginning, we're going to continue doing these artist salons, so keep an eye out for incoming information and stick around for a bit and give it up for Front Yard FM.